It has happened more than once. You are inside your house. Maybe you are at the kitchen sink. Maybe you are sitting at your desk. Maybe you are just walking past the window on your way to somewhere else. And you stop, because there it is, right there, on the other side of the glass. A ruby-throated hummingbird hovering, not at the feeder, not at a flower, at your window, specifically, looking in. It stays for 3 seconds, maybe 5, maybe longer than you can explain, and then it is gone. You stand there for a moment. Something about that felt different. Something about the way it hovered, completely still in the air, wings invisible with speed, that tiny body suspended in space, looking directly through the glass. Felt like it was doing something intentional. You told yourself it was probably just seeing its reflection. Probably just confused by the glass. Probably nothing. But it happened again. Same window. Same bird. Same feeling. And you have been wondering ever since. What was that? Today, I am going to tell you exactly what that was. Let us start with what the science actually says. Because the science is more remarkable than most people realize. When a ruby-throated hummingbird hovers at your window, it is not confused. It is not lost. It is not seeing its reflection and fighting a rival. It is looking for you. Not metaphorically, literally. Research on ruby-throated hummingbird behavior in suburban environments has documented a specific behavior pattern called human-directed orientation, where individual hummingbirds that have established a feeding relationship with a specific person will actively seek visual confirmation of that person's location. In plain language, your hummingbird wants to know where you are. It knows you. It has been watching you all summer from the feeder, from nearby branches, from the perch it uses to survey its territory. It has learned your schedule. It knows which door you use. It knows which window you sit near. It has built a model of your movements inside your house. And when something about that model needs updating, it comes to check. The window is the thinnest boundary between your world and its world. Glass is transparent. From a hummingbird's perspective, hovering at your window is simply hovering at the edge of your space. Close enough to see you, close enough to register your presence, close enough to communicate. What it cannot do is come inside. So it hovers, and it waits for you to notice. Here is the part that makes this behavior even more remarkable. Your hummingbird is not hovering at random windows. It is hovering at yours, specifically, repeatedly, and that specificity is not an accident. Ruby-throated hummingbirds build extraordinarily detailed spatial models of their territories. We have covered this in previous videos, the precision of their memory, the inch-level accuracy of their return to the same feeder position year after year. That same precision applies to their model of your house. Your hummingbird knows your windows. It knows which ones you appear in most often. It knows which direction you face when you sit at your desk. It knows which window you look out of when you refill the feeder. It has been building this model of you specifically through hundreds of small observations made across an entire summer. Research from the University of California studying corvid spatial modeling of human behavior directly comparable to what hummingbirds demonstrate with trusted humans, found that individual birds develop what researchers describe as a behavioral map of specific humans. Not just where the food is, where the person is, what the person does, when the person appears. Your hummingbird has a behavioral map of you. The window it keeps returning to is the window where its map of you is most frequently confirmed. It is the window where you most often appear, where your presence is most reliably located, where the information it needs, you are here, you are safe, the relationship is continuing, is most readily available. It is not coming to your window by accident. It is coming to your window because that is where you are. There are 4 specific reasons your hummingbird comes to your window, and each one tells you something different about what it needs. Reason 1, the feeder is empty or needs attention. This is the most common reason and the most practical. Ruby-throated hummingbirds are extraordinarily efficient at communicating their needs to the humans they have decided to trust. If your feeder is empty, if it is due for cleaning, if the nectar level has dropped below a certain point, your hummingbird will come to your window to tell you. Not because it understands windows and glass and the concept of a house, but because it knows that you are inside, and that when you appear outside something good happens, and that hovering at the boundary of your space is the most direct way it knows to prompt your appearance. Researchers studying hummingbird-human interaction have documented this behavior extensively. In multiple observed cases, hummingbirds that had established strong feeding relationships with specific people were documented hovering at windows or doors within 30 minutes of a feeder running empty. Before the human had noticed the feeder was empty. The bird noticed before you did. And it came to tell you. Reason 2, it is checking on you. This one requires a moment to sit with because it asks you to consider something that feels remarkable. Ruby-throated hummingbirds that have formed strong associations with specific people have been documented displaying what researchers carefully describe as monitoring behavior toward those individuals. The bird checks in. Not every day. Not on a schedule you can predict. But with a regularity that goes beyond simple food-seeking behavior. It comes to the window when the feeder is full. When there is nothing it needs from you materially. When the only explanation for the visit is that it wanted to confirm you were there. In long-term studies of hummingbird-human relationships in suburban environments, individual birds were observed making window approaches on days when feeders were fully stocked and recently cleaned, visits that served no apparent food acquisition function. The researchers noted these visits increased during periods when the human's routine had changed, when they had been away for a few days, when they appeared less frequently in the yard than usual. The bird noticed you were gone, and when you came back, it came to check. Reason 3, it is displaying for you. Male ruby-throated hummingbirds are among the most spectacular aerial performers in the natural world. Their courtship display, the dramatic J-shaped dive that produces the distinctive buzzing sound as air rushes through their tail feathers, is one of the most physically demanding behaviors they perform. But males do not only display for females. Researchers have documented display behavior directed toward humans who have established consistent positive feeding relationships with individual birds. The window hover is sometimes the beginning of a display sequence, the bird positioning itself to be seen before launching into a performance. If your hummingbird hovers at your window and then you see it dive, arc, buzz, it may be showing you something. Performing for an audience it has decided is worth performing for. You are the audience it chose. Reason 4, it is saying goodbye. This is the one that hummingbird owners find most difficult to hear, because it has happened to so many of them without them realizing what they were witnessing. In the days before fall migration departure, ruby-throated hummingbirds change their behavior in subtle ways that most owners notice only in retrospect. They feed more intensely. They perch and survey their territory for longer periods. And many of them, not all but many, make one final visit to the window of the person they have been watching all summer. Not to the feeder, to the window, to the person. Ornithologists studying pre-migration behavior describe this as a territory farewell circuit, where the bird makes a final pass of all significant locations in its territory before departure. For a bird that has developed a strong human association, the human, or more precisely, the window where the human is most often seen, becomes one of those significant locations. That last window hover you saw in September or October, the one that felt different from the others, the one where the bird stayed a little longer than usual, the one where something in you went quiet, may have been your hummingbird completing its farewell circuit. It was saying goodbye, not in words, not in any way it consciously understood as goodbye, but in the only way it knew how, by coming one last time to the place where you were. Now let us talk about what your hummingbird actually sees when it hovers at your window, because this is where the science becomes genuinely extraordinary. A ruby-throated hummingbird has tetrachromatic vision. Humans have 3 types of color receptors in our eyes. Hummingbirds have 4, plus they can see into the ultraviolet spectrum. What this means practically is that when your hummingbird hovers at your window, it is seeing you in colors you cannot imagine. Your skin, your clothing, the room behind you, all of it is visible in a spectrum that extends beyond what any human eye can process. Research published in the journal PNAS found that ruby-throated hummingbirds can distinguish colors across the ultraviolet spectrum that appear identical to human observers. 2 flowers that look the same color to you look completely different to your hummingbird. 2 people who look similar to each other look entirely distinct to a bird that can see UV reflectance patterns in human skin. Your hummingbird does not just recognize your face. It recognizes you in a spectrum of color and light that makes you uniquely and unmistakably yourself. No other person looks like you to your hummingbird. Your UV signature, the pattern of light your skin and hair and clothing reflect in frequencies you cannot see, is as unique to the bird as a fingerprint. When it hovers at your window, it is confirming that specific pattern. Checking that the UV signature it has learned to associate with safety and food and the consistent warmth of a human presence that has never threatened it, is still there. Still the same. Still you. There is something in that which is difficult to fully absorb. Your hummingbird knows you in wavelengths of light you cannot see. And it comes back to your window because the you it sees, the full-spectrum version of you that exists beyond your own visual awareness, is the thing it has learned to trust. So the next time your hummingbird hovers at your window, here is what you should do. First, be still. Movement startles. A sudden turn toward the window, a quick step forward, an arm reaching for a phone to take a picture. All of these can break the moment and cause the bird to flush. If you are already still when the bird appears, stay still. Let it hover. Let it look. Give it the time it is asking for. If you must move, move slowly. Turn toward the window in one long, slow movement. The hummingbird has seen you move slowly before. It knows slow movement from you is safe. Second, make eye contact if you can. This sounds strange, but hummingbirds are extraordinarily responsive to direct gaze from humans they trust. Research on hummingbird-human interaction has found that birds in established feeding relationships show measurably different behavioral responses to humans who look directly at them versus humans who look past them or away. When your hummingbird hovers at your window, look at it. Not with sudden movement, not with aggressive leaning forward, but with the calm, direct attention of someone who has been waiting to say hello. It may not respond visibly, but it is registering your gaze. It is confirming the interaction it came for. Third, check your feeder. Always, every time your hummingbird comes to your window, go check the feeder afterward. Even if you checked it yesterday. Even if you think it is fine. Because one of the most common reasons for window visits is a feeder that needs attention, and your hummingbird noticed before you did. Fourth, notice the timing. Start paying attention to when your hummingbird comes to your window. What time of day, what you were doing, whether the feeder needed attention, whether your routine had changed recently, whether it was late in the season. The pattern will tell you which of the 4 reasons brought it to your window. And once you understand which reason it is, you will understand something about your hummingbird that most people who love hummingbirds never learn. Here is what I want you to understand about every window visit your hummingbird has ever made. That bird weighs less than 2 pennies. It has crossed an ocean to be in your yard. It has navigated 900 miles of open water in complete darkness, guided by stars and magnetic fields, burning through its body weight in fat to reach a specific point on the map, your yard. And when it gets there, when it has survived everything the migration asked of it and found its way back to the one place it chose as safe, it does not just go to the feeder. Comes to the window, comes to where you are. Not because it needs something every time. Not because every visit has a practical explanation. But because somewhere in the biology of this extraordinary animal, in the spatial memory that carries your yard through thousands of miles of winter, in the pattern recognition that knows your face in wavelengths of light you cannot see, in the behavioral map it has built of your movements and your routines and your presence, you became part of its world. Not the feeder, not the yard. You. The window is the closest it can get to you from the outside. And it keeps coming back to it because the thing on the other side of that glass, the specific UV signature, the familiar movement pattern, the presence it has learned to trust across an entire summer of watching and being watched, is you. There is a version of that which is purely biological. Learned behavior, conditioned response, adaptive strategy. And there is another version. The one that most of you watching this already know. The one that made you go still the last time it happened. The one that made something in you go quiet and pay attention in a way that is hard to describe. A creature that weighs less than 2 pennies. That crossed an ocean. That carries your yard in its memory through a winter in a country most of us will never visit. That sees you in colors you cannot imagine. Came to your window and looked in. Whatever that means to you, whatever you believe about what passes between a wild creature and the human it has chosen, I want you to know this. You were not imagining it. The next time it happens, go still. Look back. Let it last as long as it lasts. because on the other side of that glass, hovering in the air on wings that have crossed an ocean, seeing you in a spectrum of light you will never see yourself, is something that chose you. Tell me in the comments. Has your hummingbird ever hovered at your window? Which window was it? And did it feel like something more than a bird looking for food? I want to hear every single story. I will see you in the next one.